Hey guys, welcome to session number 9 now for my November webinar series. Today we're going to be talking about advanced improvisation. Let me show you an example here of what we're talking about here. So today we're gonna get into approaches. All right. Now approaches are where well, let me play it for you first, and then we'll discuss it. All right. So what we have going on here is these approaches, and approaches are basically, you think about having a target note. So if we take a look at, like this E right here, I'm trying to get to that E, so I have that half step above, okay, moving to the E, all right? So here, look at this one. This is a target, this is an approach, this is a half step below the G sharp going up to the A. So years ago, I worked through an exercise, and this is a great exercise to work on. And basically what you do is you take any chord, okay, so here's a C6 chord, right? In fact, let's do a C7 chord instead. Be a little bit easier for right now. And then you do different approaches into each chord tone. So maybe you do a half step above each chord tone. So basically, I have my chord tones, and I'm playing a half step above the C, down to the C, half step above the E, down to the E, half step above the G, down to the G, half step above the B flat, down to B flat. And in the left hand, I can just do my C7 chord shell. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. So notice how I'm starting on the upbeat, okay? So I'm having the chord tones come in on the downbeats. All right, so now that's half step above. We can also do half step below, all right? So, okay, I can also come the other way as well. Okay, I could do half step above, half step below. And I can mess around with starting it on an upbeat or starting it on a downbeat. It doesn't always have to be starting on that upbeat. I can also do that downbeat. I can also just do 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 1 and 2. So I was half step above the C, half step below the C, to the C. I can also do half step below the C, half step above the C, to the C. So you see all of these different combinations that I can come up with. So right now, the combinations that I have is half above to the target, half below to the target, half above, half below to the target, half below, half above to the target. All right, so now we can also do double chromatics. So this is a double chromatic moving down into the C. So basically all I'm doing is whatever my target is, I'm going up 2 half steps, resolving down to that chord tone. So I can also go 2 half steps below. And see how I move my thumb out of the way there. All right, and then lastly, I can start to incorporate half step above, double chromatic from below. Half step from below, double chromatic from above. So now look at how this starts to play out here. So I have, if I just analyze what I have going on here, I have the flat 5, flat 3, root, flat 7. So this is all chord tones from G minor 7, flat 5. This whole first section here, right? In fact, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to load it up on here. So just give me a second here while I load this over there. So to practice these, you want to, really, one, go slow, okay? And don't try and do all 12 keys and, all different types of chords. You really want to just start simple at first. So you might just take a specific kind of chord, like a dominant 7th chord. Just try doing your half step aboves, half step belows, all right? So Let me load this up right now. Oops. Okay, you know what? Forget it. I'm not going to be able to load it from here right now. So anyway, so we have chord tone, chord tone, chord tone, chord tone. This goes down into what? This is the third, right? That's a chord tone as well. Chord tone, right? Chord tone. But now look, I'm ending on a G, and I have this consistent eighth note line. Now, why do we do a consistent eighth note line? This is just because we're trying to get a nice flowing improvisational line, okay? We're not going to always play with you know, a consistent eighth notes, and then you know we're going to start to add in some rests as well, which I'll talk about that in a second. Okay, but here I can now to fill in that space. Well, what can I do? I have the G here, and now I'm going to an A. So now what I can do? I could do that chromaticism up into the A, and then now take a look at this. This right here, the G to the E to the F, is really kind of like an enclosure on that F itself, right? So I'm like doing a whole step above the F, half step below to the F, and then I do a half step up to the F sharp, which is the third of my D7 chord. Then fifth, seventh, flat 9, and then back to flat 5 for my G minor 7, flat 5. And look at this right here. See this enclosure right here? So C is the target, right? So we hit the target, go down a whole step, but then a half step above, right? See this enclosure right here? A whole step below, half step above, down to the target, right? Now this is all part of this larger lesson, which is my improvisation over standards in 5 steps. And I go through like melodic embellishment, guide tone lines, you know, your chord tones, you know, your approaches, and then get into like all of this other more advanced scales, you know, your symmetrical scales, you know, super Locrian, half whole diminish, all of that kind of stuff. All right, that's all in that improvisation over standards in 5 steps, and that is in the main Piano with Willie site. Now, if you're not a member of Piano with Willie, now is definitely a great time to take advantage of that because I'm running all of my Black Friday specials. In fact, if you need to find all of those, just go right there. That's going to be active until November 29th, so make sure you go to studywithwillie.com and take a look at those specials because they will be going away as of November 29th. Okay, and this is the if you really want to get the lowest price on a membership for you know, for the year, this is the time to do it. All right, so how can we practice these approaches? All right, so so now I gave you the concept of an approach, and now, all right, so how do you start to incorporate them into your playing and into your practice routines? Well, what's great about working on approaches is that you can dovetail them, and you can also combine them with other things that you're practicing. Okay, so for instance, let's say that you're practicing rootless chord voicings. Okay, we were talking about voicings in yesterday's webinar. So here's a C7 rootless chord voicing. You know, typically have a C down there, right? So 3, 13, 7, 9. Okay, now you might ask, well, should I be approaching these chord tones or should I be approaching the regular C7 chord tones? My answer is you can do both. Okay, so I could do like a double chromatic from above, half step from below. So now I'm working that voicing over here while also doing my approaches over here in the right hand. So then I can move from like C and then maybe I go to an F7. Now notice what I'm doing is I'm going the opposite way in my circle of fifths. This is what's called my circle of fourths. If you're a member of my Jazz Piano Theory site, you have that nice circle of fifths chord chart that I made for you guys, so you can download that. All right? If you're not and you're interested in this kind of stuff, definitely check out jazzpianotheory.com. Right now, running a special. If you go back, like I said, to that Study with Willie page, all right, there's a special there for Jazz Piano Theory. You can sign up right now at $29 a month. It's normally $39 a month, and that price sticks. By the way, all of those prices on that Study with Willie page stick. So if you sign up for a quarterly membership or something, and $99 per quarter, it sticks. Right? So now, okay, so now here I have my C7, and I can go to my F7. So now I can work those two different voicings right there, and when I go to F7, Now, notice what I'm doing here. In fact, let me do this. That's going to mess you all up there. I want to get the bell of the metronome. Here we go. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with this metronome. I'm going to be conceptualizing this metronome on 2 and 4. So that's 2, 4, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so what am I doing there? So at first I started with this, I just did the double chromatic from above, half step from below, moving to the C. And I did the same thing, moving to the E. So it's to the root to the third of each of the chords. And I did it on F. Okay. So remember, that's my target. Those are my approach notes. All right, to the C, to the E, and then to the F, to the A, to the C, to the E, to the F, to the A. Okay? So then all I was doing was just playing my rootless chord voicing down there in the left hand, kind of comping that along with that metronome on 2 and 4. Make a mistake, just keep going. You can go a half below. All right, so now what does this do for, and then that was the first thing I did. The next thing I did after that is I started to bring in that Mixolydian scale. So there's my Mixolydian scale for C, and then there's the Mixolydian scale for F. All right, so. So just kind of like finishing out the rest of that Mixolydian scale. Now, these exercises are all different exercises that you can create for yourself. The main idea is that you understand, okay, I'm working on my approaches into my chord tones, and then I can start to incorporate my scales. What you're trying to do is you're trying to create that line. Like you see this improvised line here? Like if you just draw this, see how it goes down, then up, then down, up, down, It's a nice, this whole line. It's not just going straight down, straight up. It's not like you're just doing this. It's like you're not just like playing a scale up and down. You're now starting to weave between these different chord tones. Now, let me break this down for you so you kind of understand a little bit more of the larger concept, all right? This is where I can use this right now, all right? Let me open this up. Okay. Let's see. Okay, there we go. All right, so okay, there we go. All right, the first thing that you do, okay, first thing that you're going to do is you need to know your major scale, okay? So, and I'm just assuming that you're playing in major right now. Now, if you're not playing in major, you're playing in minor, well, then obviously you need to learn your minor scale. So if you're playing in C minor, make sure you know your C natural minor scale. If you're playing in C major, make sure you know the C major scale. And what you do is, whatever song you're improvising over, try just using that major scale to improvise over all of the chords. Now, you're going to say, well, wait a second, especially if you're an advanced level player, you're going to say, well, that's complete BS, Willie. Like, that major scale is going to work over all of those chords. Aha. You're absolutely right. It won't work over all of those chords. The real challenge is, can you make it work over all of those chords? Which, if you're an advanced level player, you should be able to. And if you can't, then that means that that's something you need to practice. All right? You should be able to take the major scale of any song that you're playing in and be able to make it work over most of the chords in that song, or figure out a way of making it work. Okay. All right. So that's the first thing. Scale. You got to know the scale. All right. The next thing is you have to know your chord tones. All right. That's another thing in which a lot of students just really don't know chord tones. And when I say no chord tones, I mean like F minor 7, F A flat C E flat. It's like bam, immediate. Okay. It's just real fast. You know exactly all of those chord tones. And then you start to know, then you can start to add on plus tensions, okay? Now, you want to know, how do you learn that? Well, I have a system for that. That's the Piano Essentials. It's all laid out in the Piano with Willie site. If you're not a member, now's the time to become a member, okay? If you are a member and you're not going through Piano Essentials, then that's what you need to be doing. You need to be working through your Piano Essentials. And once you do that, then you can move on to your Chord Essentials, and soon I'll be releasing some new Essentials courses as well. All right, so look for those. All right, now after you can do that, now you start to weave in, all right, your scales to chord tones. All right, I know it's kind of hard to see there. All right, so now you start moving between your scales to chord tones. Now that's what I did in the first 3 scales and improvisation webinars, okay, that if you haven't taken a look at those, write into us. You should have been getting them in email, so make sure that you check your email box. We're also going to give you a solution at the end of November, which you can access all of them in one easy download. So that's the third step, okay? So like if you're improvising over a song, again, you take a standard, go through and play the major scale over all of the chords. So play the chords as you know, as they are in the left hand, and then use your major scale in the right hand. Okay. Next step is play the chords, but then use chord tones in the right hand. The next step is play the chords in the left hand, and then use major scale or chords in the right hand. You kind of weave in between. Next step is today's stuff. This is advanced, and then we start to use approaches. Okay. That's my approaches into my chord. So, okay? And there's no set approach. You can do a half step above, half step below. You can do double chromatic above, double chromatic below. You can do whole step above, whole step below. You could do combinations of all of those. All right. So half step below, whole step below to the target. Half step above, double chromatic below to the target. Half step above, half step below to the target. So you have all of these different permutations that you can get. All right, that really now start to weave this line. So what does the approach actually do? What do these approaches do? They make it so that when you have your chord tones, it's adding in these little melodic elements that make it so that you can kind of like weave that line, right? And rather than thinking, oh, it's a scale, or oh, it's a chord tone, no. Now it's an approach. And what the approach does, if you haven't noticed it, a little bit of tension there, right? That major 7th there. But it resolves itself. And then what happens is, in your playing, you'll after you like work this stuff and it takes a while, okay? This is not something that's like in, 5 easy steps you're going to, just be a master of this stuff. It takes a while to like really get this stuff down. But what you're going to find then is now once you master those approaches and you start to like really start weaving that together, now your lines start to make more sense. Now your lines start to get longer, and now your lines start to become more flowing. So why am I talking about that rather than talking about pentatonic scales and altered scales and stuff like that, especially if this is advanced improvisation? The reason I'm talking about this is because what I've found is that typically students will, they think that they got to go for this brass ring over here, like you have to I got to be doing all of my pentatonic stuff and like moving outside the tonality and whatnot and bringing it back in and and chordal voicings and all that stuff. They think that they got to go for that, but they can't just outline chord changes. They're not good at outlining chord changes. So you have to like really start with that first. You need to be good at being able to outline chord changes and then be able to really distinguish the harmony even if you had no chords here in the left hand. Okay? All right, so now that's all about approaches. I want to also talk about rhythm as well. So back to this. So what you could start to do is when you have this consistent eighth note line, you now want to start to break this up a little bit, right? So an easy way of breaking it up is like just keep, the eighth note line, but then like something like this, play that as a half note, and then start over here again, and then play that as a half note. So then you get something like this. Oops, sorry, major 7. All right, so right. So that's one easy way of doing it. So you basically just pick, beginning of a measure or inside the measure, and then you can turn a note from an eighth note into a quarter note, into a half note, okay? You can also start to do upbeats. So like get rid of this note here, okay? So you do something like this. So now you start to do this upbeat thing in which you start to have like an upbeat rather than having that downbeat. So you see how I just left that E right out? Okay. I could even try leaving the G sharp out. So leave these two that are in parentheses completely out. Right? So I could take all the stuff that's in parentheses and leave that stuff out. Right? And that gets an interesting line as well. So rather than doing some heavy lifting, thinking that, oh my goodness, I have to like come up with all of these, massively creative rhythms, no. Instead, take the eighth note line and start to take stuff out of that eighth note line. Okay? So hopefully, some of these tips will help you. Like remember, we got many more of these. We got 3 more sessions here, November 25th, 28th, and the 30th, okay? So make sure that you have gone back to pianowithwillie.com/November. And then here's the real big thing, is that to get better at this stuff, as you probably have already realized, watching videos is one thing, but really to get better, you need to make a commitment to your playing and you need to have some type of accountability and feedback. So typically students want to have feedback from me, right? And that's great. I'm happy to do that, okay? And I am now doing that in part of my Piano with Willie coaching program. Now, the coaching program was, I've been doing the coaching program for over a year and it's been going great and students love it. But they've been sending videos in to me and then I record a video and send it back to them. And that system works great, but some students also want to do more of a live type of scenario. So now I'm starting to incorporate that as well, and that's what I'm calling my one-to-one piano initiative. And this is where if you're a member on my site, you will be able to schedule a live Skype lesson with me. Now, if you're not interested in doing a live Skype lesson, you don't have to do that. It's not like it's a requirement. It's just there for those students that need that extra push, all right? then that's going to be available to my studio members and also to my Premier members. Now, if you haven't heard, I've just opened up my Premier level membership again, and it's only going to be open for the next week because I kind of lock it down because I can only have so many Premier students. But one thing that the Premier level membership does for you is that it gives you access to all of my other sites. So rock, funk, cocktail piano, jazz piano theory, all of that stuff. As a Premier member, you get access to those other microsites. So it's a really good deal. Take a look at studywithwilly.com. That's where all the information is, and I have a video there, that explains all of the stuff as well. So anyway, all right. So hey, thanks guys for joining me on today's webinar. So like I said, the next one is going to be on the 25th. All right, that one's going to be on rock improvisation. That will be fun. So I will see you then, and thanks again for joining me.